Welcome back, everyone, for the continuation of our annual plan hearings. We have an apology received from Councillor McDonald, and we have, I think, we definitely got James online and Jake, I'm sure. So, Megan, you got a bit of a issue?
Yes, we're having technical issues this morning, I'm afraid, and I won't be able to get them fixed for the duration of this meeting. You may notice that my microphone's not working. They are working for people on Zoom and the live streaming, so they can hear us if you use your microphone, even though we can't hear it. So please use your microphone anyway. You're just going to have to talk really loud, unfortunately. It also means that the people on Zoom we can't hear them, so they can't talk to us. So if anyone on Zoom has any questions, they could email Kathy and we could get those read out. So apologies, and like I said, we won't get it fixed today, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So, kicking it off, we have the Canterbury Museum. Thank you, guys. Good to see you again after our wee tour last week. The museum is now officially empty. So, well done. A lot of work gone on there.
Kia ora koutou, Mr Mayor, Councillors, thank you for hearing us this morning. The museum may be empty, but the museum is still very much running, and the research and the preparation for the new building and so on is going ahead, and our staff will be very busy over the next 4 or 5 years. Just to introduce we're going to be talking to you tomorrow again, but just want to say that we are valuing the partnership we have with the City Council and the other councils, and of course we also report to Selwyn, Waimakariri and Huranui, and we're also grateful for the fact our staff have been having very constructive conversations with your staff. We're like you. We have the cost pressures that are there for in the current economic climate. It's very important for us that we can break even on our operational in our operations, because we need not to be breaking into our funding that we've got already for the project. We do have, your staff have come to a way of dealing with that, and I don't know if Anthony wants to talk a bit more about that now, but it's, for us, it seems to work. We've talked to both Huranui and Waimakariri, and we're due to talk to Selwyn on Wednesday, and we haven't had too much kickback from those two councils, so that,
yeah. Thank you, David, and thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Just to summarise, we're submitting in support of the 5% operating levy increase that is in your annual plan. As David has said, your staff and, in fact, the staff of the other 3 district councils that help fund the museum's operations have all found ways of arriving at a levy package for the museum that is within that 5%. So it appears on the surface that everyone is happy with that situation. As David said, we have a full briefing with you tomorrow in a seminar setting, and we have set up a meeting on Thursday of a consultative committee with all the 4 councils that involves the political side and staff side, just to work through our amendment to our draft annual plan that will meet the 5% threshold for all 4 councils. So it's looking good, and we're happy to answer any questions. Probably tomorrow is a better one because we'll have half an hour rather than a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Has anyone got any questions, or do you want to leave it till tomorrow? Tomorrow? All right? All good? Thank you very much for coming in. We'll look forward to catching up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, David.
see you.
Okay. Next we have Mark. Mark Duff. Welcome, mate. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Rather than bring in a support person, I thought I'd save the carbon footprint. So,
Good work. Good work.
yeah. Kura koutou and pinch and punch for the first of the month as well. I wanted to start today as someone who comes through the Press High School debating system, and as third speaker was known for my rebuttal. There was a comment by another group earlier that extra funding had to be secured for the Matarika Centre due to the old dump it was built on. My understanding and from council sources are that the additional budget costs were not due to the piling costs, but the cost of the goods in supply and the inflation. It's going to be great to see a non-productive land previously in Hornby going to be a hive of activity in our community. I think it's important we deal in fact and not fake. Let me introduce Lord Ted of Hornby. He is actually a resident of Waterloo Road and well known to our community board councillors called Russell. Russell has campaigned for many years to get his section of road resealed and has promised over and over again, can we just have the next slide? Over and over again to get this road done. As you can see, Russell is literally starting to pull his hair out. Ironically, he's now had to put up with seeing High Road completely resealed last Friday while he rates round the corner as his house shakes violently every time a truck goes past, and making it impossible to hold a decent conversation with him in his house. Your Lordship, I request you take a visit to Russell and sit in his house and feel his pain every day. It will improve your resident satisfaction surveys, I'm sure, and Dawn would make a good day trip for you as well. I support the increased limit for water charges, as is not an equitable charge, as Councillor Kewen so rightly pointed out, with different parts of the city built on swamp and other rivers' beds. Water savings last year could easily be explained on our wet summer with us having 149% of our normal rainfall last year and a high soil moisture rating. With the planned infrastructure for Hornby in coming years and up to 6-storey residential buildings planned, please do not make Hornby suck it up. After you voted for the P14, I went through Hornby that night and the suck it up truck was outside this new development, and they said to me the pipes simply cannot cope at the moment with what's going through them. Please make sure in the upcoming long-term plan that Hornby is giving the funding levels it requires to meet the high-density housing. Chuck away the current LTP that's coming up. You already have and start afresh. Our infrastructure is already not coping. Do not add to the problem without resources and planning in the future. Presentation of the data in this year's annual plan was excellent, and I suggest anyone who found it difficult seek out assistance, because it's easily understood when you learn how to use it. Maybe it just needs an explanation though around the long-term projects, because some of them you don't know the finer detail yet, but one of the criticisms we get back is there's no detail to what's there, but you guys don't know what the detail is because you haven't gone out for consultation on it yet. And I think if it simply just said to be consulted on in the future with the community, I think that would save a lot of people not knowing what's going on. The Matariki Hornby Centre, just a massive thank you for what has personally been a battle for over 39 years. The dream is becoming reality. I look forward to a Hornby swimmer bringing home gold in the pool at the 2034 major games. Commonwealth Games in Christchurch. Next slide, please.
I like your thinking.
Next slide. And the next slide. I just want to add this one is, we got a $6,000 grant from our community board that we're very grateful for, the GHRA. But out of that, over 6,000 hours of community work have come from our committee, and that's only one group. It's not the living wage we're being paid as volunteers, but it's great value, I think, for the council. And I heard an earlier presentation say council needs to promote what it does. And I'd like to see you get out in your newsline and put out some of those community venture fund and where that money goes to and the end results from it. I think are the good stories to get out there. We've all seen the staff satisfaction figures. The councillors and mayor who sit around this table have a major impact on those results. Act with professionalism in this chamber, work with each other. I know it is politics, but the way you act in this chamber will reflect on the staff, and happy staff are productive staff. It's one of the biggest savings you can make in staff costs is to minimise your turnover. From my point of view, every staff member I have dealt with over the last 5 years, I thank you. You've been utterly professional and worked through the issues. Holly, Jonathan, Andrew, Matthew, Bailey, Hannah, Mum, Sam, Maria, Sandra, Natasha, who said she dreams about me, the poor thing. You know who you are, and thank you again from my passionate Hornby heart. And if we can just go to the last slide. Andre, my sister in Aidenfield, says a massive yes to the dog park. They've got their, as you see, their temporary dog park on their property. They're looking forward to that dog park in Hallsville. So I started with a teddy bear. I finished with a dog. I don't know what more I could do in my last presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I've got a question. Where that photo of that Suck It Up truck is that the same street that you're talking about to go and see Russell?
No, that's actually Amy's Road.
So Amy's Road is where the bear was in the sitting in the gutter.
No, that's Waterloo Road.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, and so Amy's Road is where the Suck It Up truck.
Yes.
Yes, and so Amy's Road sewer is not up to speed. Is that what I'm hearing?
A lot of residents, I'm not sure if it's number ones or number twos, are coming back through the system. We're getting that a lot. But I think Hornby's are unique in a situation. We most probably see more Suck It Up trucks than Uber drivers.
Yeah, okay. Check it out. Okay. No, thank you very much. That's good. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Good on you. Could you send me Russell's address or phone number? I'm not going to see him. Okay, Rick. Going to talk about Otakaro Football Club.
No, I'm not going to talk about Otakaro Football Club.
Good.
I'm going to talk about QE2 and the east side of the city. Otakaro Football Club is actually the football talent development program for all 6 football clubs on the east side of the city. There are 6 small, they're slightly smaller clubs than on the north, south, and west of the city, but between them they have over 2,500 members and 250 teams. It was established this year because they were too small to have an individual talent program of their own. So Otakaro calls on players from all those 6 clubs. It has under 13, 14, 15 and 17 teams and that play in the Christchurch League. They call it the Cuddle, the Canterbury Development League, and they have groups in skill centres from 10 to 13. The key is it represents the east side of the city. On page 14 of the thing here is the planned redevelopment of QE2, and I have put a submission in, but there are 3 key things on behalf of the community that I support that I really want to make today. And just remember that please take into account that the members or the guys that have made up the management committee, etc., all give their time voluntarily for the benefit of these youngsters coming through. These guys haven't had this opportunity in the past few years, haven't kept up with the opportunities that have been on other sides of the city. If they wanted to take advantage, they had to go and take it. So as part of that, one of the biggest problems we've had is grounds. This is over and above to what's been on the east side. So when I had the plan for QE2 put in front of me, this was like manna from heaven for the east side. This is good stuff. And in the program, when it talks about things that are happening, you've got the fields that are being upgraded. You've got the community hub the buildings there that are being upgraded for the community use. You have new facilities being put in place for things like disc golf. This is great for the city. So first and foremost, item number 1, support it. It's brilliant. It needs to move, and it's good to see in the execution that we're starting to go ahead. It's funded. That's the second big thing, it's funded. But my second part of the presentation today is about the execution of the plan. There's enough room for an additional football pitch, and it looks like, to be fair, a group that is drawing from all of the east side and it's for youth football, is exactly the right thing to do. But those youth teams are mixed. They are girls and boys. The coaches, the managers, the assistant are men and male and female. The referees that come along and officials are male and female. Football, as in all other sports, is moving forward. Stage 1 of this redevelopment does not include changing facilities at all. No increase in changing facilities, no increase in toilets. According to page 15 of the pamphlet you've got here, they are funded. This is not a funding issue. So from my viewpoint, on behalf of some 200, 300, 400 kids that are going to be playing there 3 or 4 times a week with 2 or 3 trainings and with games to be arranged, We need changing rooms. It is not fair to have girls having to go in first and get changed and use the toilet facilities and then boys to go in afterwards. They've got to be fit for purpose. It's simply not fair to ask our youngsters to put up with this when this is a 21st century facility. This is not just trying to adapt what's there. And all it's going to take is a slight change in the priorities and getting them put in place, built for purpose. The third thing, and I'm conscious of the time, the third thing is if we do that and if we start to see the lift in patronage coming through with more teams, it might not just be football because AFL's out there, rugby pitches are out there, we've got 2 high schools out there, all of which could end up putting more, running events or whatever. They are there. So then you have the third part of it, which is that immediate increase in usage of QE2 would be a serious boost to accelerating the momentum for the next stage. The next stage, as you will see, is an all-weather facility, not yet funded. I accept that. But just put this in your mind in the last 10 seconds. If you put another all-weather facility on it, and there's 2 high schools, they can use it all during the day during high school. But it frees it up from 5 till 9 o'clock at night, 5 days a week, for the local community, the local sports clubs, the local hub to use that facility. That is 28 hours. When you start bringing in the weekends where you mix in with the other facilities and the schools, you're creating a lot. But it needs to, I accept from a council viewpoint and any business project viewpoint, get the usage first and the rest will follow. I get that. Funding will be an issue. But can I talk Ministry of Education and stuff like that? Funding is an issue. If they see it, and they see those high schools, girls and boys, when you think about the facilities I've talked about needing, that's what you need to do, in my opinion, and that's the submission I've made on behalf of the club that I represent, but also the other clubs on the east side.
Thank you very, very much. That's a place that's very dear to my heart, so thanks for coming in.
Good as gold.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okie doke. Annabelle and Malcolm, please.
Morena, ko Annabelle Hasselman-Ho, Chair of the Opawa Heathcote River Network.
Kia ora, Malcolm Long, I'm Secretary. Whoops.
Okay. The Opawa Heathcote River Network is a community-based catchment group, and we've become a community voice for the Opawa Heathcote. We advocate for getting the community together. We advocate and promote for the regeneration of the health and the Māori of the river, and we connect and support the communities in the river catchment.
Thanks for a really readable plan. It was really good, even better than the previous year, we thought. We would encourage a little bit more detail about where there are changes on line elements, but no, we acknowledge the difficult times.
We just really want to emphasise that it's important that the principles of Te Mana o Te Wai underpin all the deliberations on decision making by the Council for our urban rivers, the health of our waterways, the mana of our waterways, healthy water, healthy ecosystems, and this brings to healthy communities.
Look, we want to also acknowledge the work that's gone on in the headwaters, particularly the retention ponds and the dam. They're significant. They will prevent some flooding, most flooding perhaps, but not sediment.
We strongly support the action to deliver natural waterways work, but we're concerned that the allocation in this budget is not beyond 2024-2025. We also support the draft Healthy Waterways Action Plan, which is about to be released, and we seek annual funding allocation for the naturalising of waterways to improve rainfall resilience. So we really seek the commitment of the Council to the draft Healthy Waterways Action Plan, which will come before you from Belinda Margetts.
The fish passage barriers seems small, but it's actually really important for the ecology of the rivers, and we really encourage you to keep working on that. Success in planting on the port, what was this issue?
No, sediment.
success in planting on the Port Hills is really important. These programs are vital. There's a big time lag between planting and effective reduction of erosion. Community volunteers can plant some, but not significantly on the slopes. Commercial operators are needed, and the funding for that is probably insufficient to both maintain and plant on a wide scale. So we'd like you to review those allocations, particularly in the long-term plan for city-facing slopes in particular.
In light of Cyclone Gabriel and even the recent rainfall in the North Island, it's a bit of a wake-up call for us here in Christchurch. A similar deluge on the Port Hills will result in significant destruction to property and widespread funding. It's a risk to, it's a real risk to property. The possibility to mitigate some of the effects, it's possible, but it will not be easy, and time is of the essence. This is really important for the council to take on as an issue. Funding solutions need to involve all interested parties, landowners, community, mana whenua, and it's urgent and it's a priority for a Port Hills plan. And this needs to integrate revegetation, erosion control, biodiversity, and just pest management. So we really push the council to pick this up and to implement this. And a recent Zone Committee, Banks Peninsula, Christchurch, West Melton and Whakaora Healthy Harbour, it showed the will and the collaboration of everyone coming together and the need for a joint action and for the council to lead this for the community. We just really want to note our appreciation for all the work that councillors and many staff at the City Council do to protect and improve our environment, and we regard this work as often to be undervalued, but it is not by us, and we enjoy working with you, and we will always be advocating for the Opawa Heathcote River, but we do want more, and more would be even more appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's great to hear people passionate about the environment. Just in terms of plantings, we were aware that the press-sponsored one in the Burwood ward, and in 2.5 hours they planted volunteers, just people contacted, I guess, through the newspapers, etc., planted 5,000 plants in 2.5 hours. I could see that working really well with you guys on the hills, you know.
It's different on the hills compared to the plains.
I mentioned
and following the fires, there was enormous turnouts, and there's a lot of support. But it's the long-term thing. You know, you can plant plants, but actually maintaining it so that they grow into trees is another question.
Yes, no, good point.
But I think that is acknowledging that there is a huge community. Christchurch is unique in that we do have these amazing communities and community passion for our environment and to seeing change in those environments. So we need to harness the energy that's out there, but it needs to be driven and held by council as well. It can't just be the community. There's amazing community groups doing things, but we need people to help support that to make it happen, to get the greater impact on the ground.
Yeah, and I certainly think that council does get involved in those plantings and support and ongoing watering of the plants. I was quite surprised to find that 85%. It's only 85% that actually survive. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there'll be a lot of goodwill towards this. I know the schools through David Newton, you know, planting all the time. Yeah. Well, best of luck with your venture.
All right, thank you.
Tim.
Just quickly, I think the last picture you've obviously put up here for a reason. Could you explain that? Because you've got the two rivers meeting, with the one full of sediment and the other one not so.
So this is the confluence of the Cashmere stream and the Opawaho Heathcote River, and so you can see that after a rain event, that the Cashmere stream runs filled with sediment. Then that stream is the sediment is coming in off the Port Hills and feeding into that. So and then those streams merge, and then we get the whole of the Opawaho.
Thank you.
And the other one may look clean, but it's got other things in it.
Yeah, you can't see. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for coming in. Well done. Peter, please. Thank you. Welcome, mate.
Oh, thank you. On this fine day in May, tell them to pay, if you dare. We pay rates and have no holidays. Anyway, the rates are free for racketeers. Get them to pay their fair share, if you dare. Paths we must share with relays of limes. Tell them to go away, if you dare. Art needs more, so they can stay and play. Give them more, if you dare. This I ask on this May Day. Thank you. That's it.
Oh, good. Has anyone got any questions? Don't all speak at once. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, could you explain
Which bit?
the whole thing?
Well,
I'm sure it is.
Thank you. I should apologise for not making it a fine day in May.
Hey, it's my birthday. I'm up for it, so you know.
Hey, well, of course, rates are a burden upon ratepayers like me on fixed incomes and stuff like that. So we don't easily go on holidays, because we just can't afford it. We need as much relief as we can from paying rates. However you can achieve that.
Yeah.
And of course, rates for companies are a taxable item. So in the end, the other lot end up paying it, eh? So if their rates go up a lot, they just put it on their tax bill. But of course, if my rates go up a lot, it comes out of this pocket. Ah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for explaining. It's just
Well,
it's good.
Oh, sorry.
Good to hear a bit of the story. I just didn't quite get it all, But
Yes.
I know you don't want to explain art, but it's actually sometimes you need to. But thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That's the end of... Oh, Yanni, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Are you able just to elaborate more on the Lime scooters? I guess for some of us, increasingly concerned at the state where I've seen them left and the obstruction that they're creating. But I also see a lot of people enjoying them as well. So I just wondered if you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, because that didn't come up in my written submission lines. It came up because of what happened in Paris last month. So I thought I'd just add it in there. And I agree, lime scoopers can be a hazard on the footpath because they're just left everywhere, and you have to jump over them or navigate your way around them or something. Yeah. So I thought, well, why don't we do like the French done in Paris and just ban them? Yeah. What's wrong with walking?
Good. You're done?
No, I mean, in the past when we've had some things, I think one action would be good to just get a sense of how we are monitoring where they're being left, because we were sort of told that would happen when we did approve the contract. So
Okay.
be good just to get some understanding of how we are monitoring.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Righto. Thank you very much for coming in, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
Good on you. Cheers. Right. Martin, please. Thank you.
There should be 5 slides to be shown here. I can't hear you.
We didn't receive any slides from you, I apologise.
Okay. We'll do it without slides. Good morning. Thank you for giving me this time. Barnett Park in Redcliffs was locked up after the earthquakes for about 10 years because of the risk of rockfall from the bluffs. During that time, the seed plants, bone seed, banana passion fruit, pig's ear became rampant, and possum, rats and stoat populations increased. 3 years ago, a small group of locals put themselves under the wing of the Residents Association and started weeding the area, and we've put in that little over 2 years, over 2,000 hours of weeding to remove those pest weeds. We've also raised through applications to different funding agencies over $30,000, and $10,000 of those dollars we've spent on contractors clearing weeds in our Barnett Park. We've had wonderful support from the rangers, but they're stretched and they do what they can. In 2022, a council Three Waters Healthy Water Bodies facilitator, don't quite know how they get those names, commissioned an aquatic ecology survey and revealed eel, galaxis and bullies in the little waterway known by your asset team in Three Waters as the Rifle Range Drain. So that's the stream coming down Monks Valley that comprises Barnett Park, and that stream has been put into a narrow channel. Over the major rain events last autumn and winter, we monitored the flows from those streams and saw that they were discharging large quantities of silt into the estuary, and they flow eventually through one of your assets so that that flow is subject to your water rights. We advocated to Three Waters to have something done, and I'd like to read from one short section of the written submission which you've got. This is a quote from an email from one of the Three Waters engineers. As a result of your advocacy for Rifle Range Drain, our creek, that drain has been put on the list of jobs for the first 2 to 3 years of the project. So this is the Southwest Port Hills and Littleton Harbour Erosion Sediment Project, which is fully funded. The task assigned against Rifle Range Drain is waterway stabilisation and valley waterway planting. It continues and concludes by saying funding is less likely to be made available for revegetation alone. So we've got a commitment from these people to your staff to renaturalise the stream, to batter back the banks and to plant it. However, in March this year, we received information from staff that this was no longer going to be done, and in direct contrast to the statement that I've read out, funding is less likely to be made available for revegetation alone. They've said that that is now what they're planning to do. So our submission to you is to please stick to your promise. The money's there. The proposal is sound. It will reduce water carrying large quantities of silt entering the estuary and will ensure compliance with your stormwater resource consent. Thank you.
Pauline, please.
Thanks, Martin. Do you know the quantum of that funding?
Sorry, I can't hear
For
you.
how much that funding was or is?
The budget is $9 million to be spent over 5 years for that whole project. The work that is required in Barnett Park is a tiny fraction of that. I don't believe it has been budgeted.
Right, thank you.
Sarah, please.
Thanks so much, Martin, and thanks for the work that's happening out there. You mentioned that you'd had to fundraise to pay for contractors to come and clear pest species from the weed species and things from Barnett Park, which is the council reserve. How much more work is needed and in that space for actually just clearing all the bone seed and the banana passion fruit and stuff to allow the other species to grow back?
Well, it's probably a generation. The seed fall from the bone seed that took place over those 10 years of neglect is a massive quantity. Fortunately, because of the heavy grass cover, the seeds are not falling fall to the ground, they're being held up and will rot. We've worked with a little bit of the ECAN people and believe that the seeds are viable for 7 years. So there's a minimum of 7 years, but it will be longer. The banana passion fruit is the tougher one because the possums feed on it, scurry away, replant it, fertilised. So we're working hard on that. The rangers will tell you that it requires continual maintenance, but the planting we're doing and the council's doing, the rangers are doing some of their own, will slowly reclaim the valley.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Diane, please.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for hearing our responses to your annual plan. I hope that you find this helpful. Sorry, but I'm going to have to read mine to try to keep to time. So first of all, I would like to talk about drinking water. And as you will be aware, I, along with many, many others, find that it's egregious that we're forced to chlorinate our perfectly good, clean drinking water with plants that fluoride to be added at a great expense. The very same drinking water is bottled and shipped off without any of these additions required. And the people of Christchurch have the right to be able to drink this same water in its natural state that others are enjoying overseas. We are not Africa or even Auckland that need the filtration and purification that their water supplies go through. We have local government because one size does not fit all. In order to fulfill the decrees passed down by Wellington and to fulfill the desire of ratepayers, your real bosses, sorry, I missed my place now. I move that the council add more spring water stations around the city at their already existing well sites. This will ensure that everyone has the choice of clean, fresh water. At present, there is only one very popular site that I'm aware of, but this resource should be made more easily available to all. There's not enough time to have the debate about the safety of the chemicals added to our water, but as you all grew up without the chemicals in the water, I assume that you would agree that it's safe and much better tasting. We have the right to have pure drinking water available to us and the right to take responsibility for our health, including whether we choose to drink chlorine and fluoride or not. Please install more spring water fill stations. My next point is cycleways, another favorite issue of council and ratepayers. I'm not against cycleways per se, but question the over-engineered, costly execution of them here in Christchurch. In Dunedin, they provide the same separation from cars in what looks like a far simpler and cost-effective manner, and I'm sure across the country you'll find various examples of designs and cost-effectiveness that achieves the same goals. The Harewood Road cycleway started off on the wrong foot from the very beginning by wasting millions on a design for the idea before it was even brought to the community for consultation. More money was then used to try and fix this situation that nobody is happy with. At the moment, we cannot afford the $23 million plus it will cost to build this cycleway. The way it was designed and the promised money from Waka Kotahi may never eventuate, as they need to focus on rebuilding infrastructure in the North Island. I also feel as a city we should not become reliant on funding from government to complete projects, as we run the risk of proving that we cannot function as a city without their help, causing them to take over more and more local government responsibilities until there's no need for a council. I also think it is vital we have a complete rethink of the design of cycleways for the safety of cyclists. Why, you may ask? Well, in the April 6th edition of The Star, reports on the alarming levels of youth crime and much of it involving bikes, among other things. One example, on February 22nd, a victim was riding along a cycleway in Papanui. He was knocked off his $2,800 bike, punched and kicked in the body and head multiple times, leaving him traumatized and having his bike, phone, and AirPods stolen. Only the leader of this gang was arrested, as he was the only one over 18. 9-year-olds are now involved in crime, and the police are powerless to stop them because of their age. and they know it. NewsHub's OIA request into how many children are not enrolled in school revealed that nationwide, 10,000 children aged 5 to 13 years old are missing in formal education of any kind. Canterbury having the highest number at 731 not enrolled. This figure does not include truant or homeschooled children. These are simply children whose parents haven't bothered to enroll them. The future is not bright for these children, as prisons are full of adults that cannot read or write. And I know education is not a council concern, but I bring this up as it shows that youth crime is not going away anytime soon. With the present design of cycleways, repeat attacks like February 22nd can become commonplace. It is simple to slow or stop the rider long enough for them to be ambushed. If the rider sees trouble ahead, they will find themselves hemmed in by the barriers that are meant to protect them from cars, which now become obstacles in their escape from these thugs. Therefore, in light of the fact that cars are not the only threat to cyclist safety, I move that a complete rethink of the design of this and other cycleways is needed. If I may, I just want to say one more thing, very quick. When filling out different forms and asked about my ethnicity, I'm always upset that I am not represented in a box to tick, and there's many other people not represented. I do not consider myself European. There's only a choice of European, New Zealander, Maori, various Pacific Islands. 2 whole continents are missing, and then there's other. So I'm always ticking other. There should be a box for New Zealander. What about the Chinese New Zealanders that have lived here for generations? They have no box to tick. Who are they? You know, so I just think an update, and I understand that the council uses this because the government uses this system. Well, just because they did something wrong doesn't mean that you have to. And so I'm finished. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Okay, Harry.
Good morning.
Morning.
Last year when I was sitting here, we were talking about the very low approval rating of the council. I see it's now on 42%. Poor communication is much of the problem. As a follow-on from last year's presentation, the Mayor's Office assisted in helping us to organise a public communication meeting that was held in the Gaiety last August. We talked about climate change, tourism, civil defence. It was a great meeting. We had over 200 people in attendance, and we thank the Council and the Mayor's Office for making it possible and for arranging for council staff and other council contractors to attend. But let's build on success. We would like some more of that, please. I'll be in touch in a few months' time, and we would like to arrange a follow-on performance. A few words about a couple of topics. We're still not convinced the City Council is taking climate change and sea level rise seriously enough. That's a big topic. We'll have to put that aside for the moment. Tourism and those ships. I see that the draft destination management plan was released this morning. Haven't read it yet, of course, but that will finally come back to this table for approval. Before that happens, we are aiming to make sure that we have complete public buy-in to that document. And if we don't have public buy-in, we'll be letting you know. How did the recent cruise ship season turn out? We had a small number, less than 20, of mainly small ships. Hundreds of passengers rather than thousands. It was quite pleasant, really. I think the general feeling is a few more small ships would be quite appropriate. On the other hand, there is a big lesson to be learnt from the whole cruise ship saga. Going back now over 10 years, it would be easy for matters to get out of hand again. And what is required is planning. We remain concerned about the lack of serious long-term planning for Akaroa and the Eastern Peninsula. There are bits and pieces of a plan, but sometimes not much joining the dots. It is not comprehensive. You have substantial investment going into wastewater, and I think it's based on some pretty dodgy assumptions about population growth. Water supply, same problem, lack of sufficient reserve capacity. Issues with roading, transport, and so on. There is a real need for serious planning that joins the dots, and we look forward to being part of it. And we look forward to ongoing cooperation for this year's public communications meeting. And I see that I have finished well early on this occasion, and I would like you to allocate any remaining time to your next presenter, who is going to speak about a particular topic that affects us all and demonstrates the lack of planning that we see in the Akaroa area. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you for that, and we will do that. Another 2 minutes on to
Okay.
Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Harry. That was very kind.
You can talk
Okay.
slower now.
Huh?
You'll be able to talk slower now.
No, I always tend to go over, so I'm hoping not to go over now. Thank you. We've been here before, more than once, and we keep coming back to the same subject. Council promises not being followed through. I don't know what happens in the back offices, but so here we are again, Akaroa Cemetery Extension. Okay, so we need to press the buttons here to move on. We'll go back a little bit. So the background is I'm representing the families and the Akaroa community buried in these cemeteries. My family goes back to 1837, presence in Akaroa. This is why it's really important to the Akaroa community. For the people that live in the community, that people that feel a connection to the community, to be able to be buried in Akaroa. So, and it's been 10 years since we've been asking for this to happen. So there's several council documents that support and have been published saying they will do that for us. So here they all are. Okay, but we still haven't got it completed. The council, the Catholic Church, donated the land. So the Catholic Church has actually given the land to the council to lay out the extra burial space for the community. The families and the community have cleared the land. The council have done the archaeological assessment. We're in the design stage now, but there's no money again in the budget to complete the project. All that we need is money to lay out the land. It's a drop in the bucket for the council budget. Absolute minimal drop in the bucket. So that's what we're asking for you to do, please, because we're very soon going to run out of space in the cemetery, and I just don't want to get to the point where somebody in Akaroa that has lived there all their life is told they've got to be buried somewhere else. Tyrone, you know the story. Thank you. Okay, so here's the land. It's all cleared. Before we cleared it, and the Catholic Church said we could clear it, was covered in wilding trees. It was supposed to be maintained by the council, and it had been let go. So there is a huge amount of land. You can see the plots that are there now. Go to the left. All that land is still cemetery land. And here's the boundary. So you can see the little bit that's used. All that land has been gifted to the council for further burial space and ashes space. So there's the cemeteries group from Akaroa, there's the Comte de Prix Descendants group, I'm connected to both, and the council. We're working at the moment with Kerry Bowen on the ground. She's a team leader in Banks Peninsula and she's been absolutely fantastic, which is so nice after so many years of you can't do. So this is the stage where we're at now. We have only got 5 burial spaces in the Anglican cemetery left. They'll be gone within a few months. There's only 1 ashes plot left. So those people that want to be buried in the Anglican cemetery will not want to be buried in the Catholic cemetery where there's a few more spaces. What do we do with them? The land is there. The council has known for 10 years that the land is there. So we just need to get it topsoiled. Our groups would actually get a bulldozer and a digger and they'd level it and it would be easy. We could do it. So it's not going to take much just to complete the project so that these people don't miss out. These are all the documents. These are all the words from the council. Council will plan for increased need and develop new areas for cemeteries. It will provide funding for cemetery infrastructure. Additional ashes plots could be created. That's 2013 to 2016 assessment of various spaces. 2015-2025 long-term plan, the cemetery's activity management plan, will meet the needs of the people into the future and provide to accommodate a mass burial in the event of a pandemic, which we've got now. So, again, requirement for council to provide cemetery space, Burial and Cremation Act 1964. And all capital and operational expenditure is directed towards a level of service that moves the community closer to this outcome, being meeting the needs of the community. So we've got it again and again in the council documents, especially this one, the 2016 Ikaroa Cemetery's Existing Capacity and Future Options Report. It's a mouthful. Anyway, there is a strong desire from the local community for additional capacity to be found within the Ikaroa cemeteries. That was 2016. We are now, extra plots were released to last 5 to 10 years. We're there now. There's something going on in the background that we don't understand, because we presented again in 2021 and we were told the development of the space in Ikaroa is progressing. Initial investigation works are complete. Design and documentation phase is happening. That's happening now. Funding is available in the existing cemetery's budget. But funding wasn't allocated to Ikaroa, it was allocated to devotional. So we say, who's making these decisions? Where is the overall oversight? None of it was to Ikaroa. So the majority of the population, the land and the need is in Ikaroa. So why was this money given to devotionals, which is well laid out? No obvious need. So why should we progress now? The need is there, the land is available, it's been gifted to the council, didn't cost them anything. It was cleared by the community, didn't cost the council anything. This is the community whose ancestors, families and friends are buried in the cemetery. They want to be buried alongside their family and friends. There's an ageing community, as we all know, in Ikaroa. It's a great retirement spot, and we've got a pandemic. So it's important that the community be able to be buried alongside their family members and friends in their own hometown. So these are the concepts of whakapapa and tūranga waiwai, which we all know. It relates to all of us, regardless of our ethnicity. So all we need now is that final little drop of money to level the land and mark out the plots. We'll be done. I know you'll do it, please, thank you. We need to. It would be absolutely heartbreaking if somebody in Ikaroa was told they had to be sent somewhere else to be buried. Devotionals doesn't cut it, it's not their community.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tyler had a question.
Two quick ones.
Yep.
Kia ora, thank you so much for that. It was really insightful. I do understand the point of whakapapa and tūranga waiwai. And in light of that, how much is that going to cost to rest our loved ones in that area?
Minimal, absolute minimal, because the Catholic Church has given the land to the council. The community has cleared it. It just needs to be graded over and mapped. That's all.
Okay. And how many extra plots does that
Hundreds.
Plot clear out?
You saw the slide at the very beginning. What we've used now with that cemetery land is only a minor fraction of what is available.
I see.
It'll keep the community going for years and decades and centuries, probably.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. This is an important topic.
Well, it's actually a question for you, Mr. Mayor, and for Lynn, that if we could get just an update in one of our briefing sessions on where this is at, just so we can find out before we put any money in, but if we need to, then we could. But normally cemeteries are quite self-funding because you sell all the plots. So just how that system works, give everyone a heads up, and if anything needs to happen to just progress it.
Reading my mind. Yep,
cool.
No problem.
Thank you, because the community have always worked alongside the council. The community is very proactive and will help as much as we can.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay. Harry, we haven't seen you for ages. Now, you've just used up 4 minutes and 59 seconds of your time because Linda used it. All right.
He's very generous.
Far away, mate.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the steam tug Littleton and a current issue and how you can help. In a nutshell, we need some momentum behind the plan for the public to reclaim the Littleton Inner Harbour. There's the tug in Scotland, brand new, 1907. And if I figure out which button to push, yep, just to reinforce how old it is, the ship the tug is escorting out of the harbour is the Nimrod, Shackleton's earlier ship than the Endurance. Now, the tug had steamed its way to New Zealand by this time, of course. Here's the tug today. I'm going to skip the last 115 years. Here it is, that period of time later, carrying passengers on the harbour. In a good season, it takes 2,000 passengers out. They go out just for the fun of it. I can't stress this enough. This is a very significant piece of maritime heritage. It's the oldest seagoing steam vessel in the world that is still operational. It's the oldest commercial vessel in New Zealand, and it's operated by an all-volunteer society. And it survives, barely survives, on grants, donations, passenger revenue, and so on. But there's a problem, you see. It needs a permanent home. Now, there's the picture of the port. You'd think there'd be somewhere in there where you could keep the oldest inhabitant, wouldn't you? In the last few years, it's been on a berth called 2 East, which has been quite satisfactory. But if we look at this picture of the port, and if I can get the mouse to operate, 2 East is up there somewhere, the tug has been relegated down to Z berth, which is over here, beside the cruise ship berth, because of operational constraints. The ships are bigger, the port needs to, handle their commercial customers and so on. It's proved to be quite impossible to maintain and operate the tug from that location. There's no public access, it's inside the port security, there's no access at all when there's a cruise ship there, and it's exposed to the weather. Now, you'll see there's 3 little berths in there that don't have labels. That's because they're essentially derelict. This is from a port company document. The earthquakes damaged their wharves. Well, that was a while ago now, of course. Fire damaged one of the wharves as well. But the thing is, there's wharves there and there's space there that's not being used. There was the Littleton Master Plan, 2012. It made all the right noises. It says the port company is going to move round to the east and there's going to be increased public access to the inner harbour. There was the Littleton Port Recovery Plan. It said all the right things as well. That was 2014. And it had little pictures of things that were going to happen and so forth. And a lot of it did happen, but it's like an unfinished book. It's like the author's nodded off to sleep before he's finished the story. There was the Port Littleton Plan, 2015. This is a port company document. We're going to have a thriving port, a vibrant waterfront and a healthy harbour. And that's just all fantastic, isn't it? We're going to move the port operations to the east and free up space for public access. And that number up there says 2014 for that top picture. And down here, the bottom one says 2044. And we're going to have a big reclamation and see how these things in the middle have changed colour, these bits of the inner port. This bit in the middle is the marina, which has happened. That's quite correct. This next bit here, that section, is labelled future public access. Now, I've sat down with the port company chief executive, who recently resigned, of course, and with other port managers, and I've said, what's the plan? And the thing is, there is no plan to progress this at the moment. There's a general idea that they are going to move out of the inner port and it'll be available for public access, but there's no actual plan to make things happen. There's no timeline and there's no budget. That's the picture of the planning information that came with one of those documents. You'll see it's all a bit vague and wishy-washy, because there is no plan. Now, if the tug has to wait until 2044 for a permanent home, it won't be with us. It's as simple as that. The point is that we collectively own the port company. It's great that they run an effective commercial operation and make money and all that sort of thing, but there's an important social contract here as well. We want your assistance in focusing the port company's attention on proactively planning to complete the redevelopment that will allow more public access to the inner harbour. The fact is they're occupying but not actually using inner harbour real estate that has great public value, and the tug, the world's oldest operating steam vessel, will be able to get a permanent home when we can get more access into that inner harbour. And then we'll see if we can keep it operating another 100 years for you.
Thank you. So I've got two questions quickly, as Tim and then Tyler.
The question is for you and Lynn. When we get a next update from either CCHL or LPC, could we include this in there? And please explain where we are at the moment in the relationship. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right.
G'day, Harry. So, where's the ideal spot? Is it at Tiana, or is it in the space that'll be cleared by the demolition of 3, 4, and 4, 5, and 6? Well, they need to get.
Or is it the old number? Is it number 2 wharf? Do you think? Where's the ideal spot?
It'd be good to get back to number 2 in the short term, but they see their bulk carriers they're taking into the port. You know, they've said they'll take bigger bulk carriers, and they're squeezing out the tug. Number 7 wharf is scheduled. You know, is where the fishing boats park at the moment. Is scheduled to become public access in due course. But that whole series of the 3 small wharfs, 4, 5, and 6, and number 7, are slated to be public access in the long run. But they're using it to park machinery and so on over there, and the port security is around there. So there needs to be a plan for them to move on.
No, cool. I mean, ideally, probably Tiana, perhaps because of just that.
Well, Tiana doesn't have a place for a vessel this size.
Yeah. Okay. No, I guess not. Yeah. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry, for coming in and explaining that. So we move on to Sue, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I represent my immediate family, all of whom live in Beckenham, which has been our family neighbourhood for over a century. We have 3 things to raise in relation to the annual plan, 1 general to Christchurch and 2 specific to our neighbourhood. The general one first, the disposal of redundant council-owned property. We believe that community use should be a priority. We understand the economic logic of selling these off on the open market, but when it comes to buyers, we would urge the council to exercise a preference for those buyers who plan to benefit the community either through repurposing the building or rebuilding on the site. We appreciate the far-sighted community vision of the youth hub development on Salisbury Street. We need to do more for the vulnerable groups in our city. We urge the council to not simply sell to the highest bidder, but put covenants on the use of at least some of these properties to prioritise community use. Second, the South Library rebuild. We can see on the plan there is a rearrangement of the expenditure for this over the next 3 years, with less front-loaded and more deferred. Our family's concern is that there could be an overall budget reduction for rebuilding, with corners cut, affecting the quality of the rebuild. South Library is a very valuable community hub for its surrounding suburbs. Beckenham has no other centre apart from a cafe and a couple of church halls. Other nearby suburbs, such as Summerfield, are in the same boat. The amazing circulation figures for South Library tell the story of its success as a library and its importance to the community for all its age groups, especially children and seniors. There are great after-school and leisure activities going on there. There needs to be space for all that to happen. There needs to be the facilities for it. We would urge the council to consider the value to community of this library over the need for budget cuts. Third and not least, Beckenham's low-speed zone. People are still speeding through Beckenham. Our family live on Malcolm and Corson Avenues. These are both wide streets that invite speed and endanger our children and pets. We have welcomed some narrowing of crossing points on Malcolm at the intersection with Birdwood, but there is nothing like that on Corson. And on Malcolm, at the designated safe crossing point for children at Hunter Ave, there is nothing to impede traffic, and this is particularly dangerous because traffic heading for Colombo Street can't see that crossing due to the dip in the road with the riverbank, and people waiting to cross can't see those cars coming. Our streets in Beckenham used to have green verges with trees, but some of these have been lost to the detriment of road safety. For the sake of our vulnerable community members, we urge the council to reinstate effective street landscaping to provide a natural braking effect on the speed of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tim, please.
Further around the river with Cashmere View Street, etc., where we've put in risers, etc.
Yes.
The locals love them because it takes out the speed, boy races, and a number of things. Would you be in favour of those sorts of things? Great, thank you very much.
Anything that's a mechanical barrier, because just a sign does not do it. And we have boy races. You can see all the skids on our roads.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Awful.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in. Okay, so what about that one on Zoom as well?
We still have James Ring.
Is he here? Yeah. Is James here? Okay. A couple of people were actually going to be on Zoom, but I'm not sure. Is James not here, is he? Oh, James, here, far away, mate. I thought you were, oh, sorry, the other person, Sandamali. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Shall I wait for Sandamali to come online? Was Sandamali able to join on Zoom? I understand she can't speak, but I think she was...
She'll be able to hear us. She won't be able to say anything. Is that right? Yep. That must be her in the black square.
Ah, right, okay. There we go.
She's online, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to Property Council's submission on the annual plan today. I'm James Riddick, and I'm the chair of the South Island branch of Property Council. I'd also like to introduce Sandamali Gunawadana from Property Council's advocacy team. I do understand that she is unable to have a speaking role today, so she's the brains of the operation in terms of the advocacy team. So hope you bear that in mind with the technical questions. But she does tell me she'll be able to liaise with me if needed by text. Property is the largest industry in Canterbury. There are around $160 billion in property assets across Canterbury, with property providing a direct contribution to GDP of 14%, along with employment for 31,000 Canterbury residents. In broad terms, we support the overall direction of this year's annual plan, with the exception of a few proposals, which I'll touch on today. The first of these is expanding the vacant sites rating differential, and the proposal to extend this to the commercially zoned areas of New Brighton, Littleton, Sydenham and Linwood. When the vacant site differential was first introduced last year, our members understood the need to beautify the CBD and to ensure that vacant sites do not have a negative impact on the amenity of the city and on demand generally. However, imposing a differential was, and in our view is still, not the solution. One of the continued concerns that our members face is that there are a multitude of reasons as to why sites may be vacant or appear vacant. For example, there could be an inability to secure an anchor tenant for a development, or a situation where there are development plans on a vacant site, but it remains vacant in the short term due to timeline sequencing within a portfolio. New Zealand's a small market, and it's unlikely that the same types of development will occur at the same time in the same city. especially when there are market constraints such as available capital and the ongoing skills shortages and supply chain issues exacerbated by the lingering effects of COVID. The proposal to extend the vacant differential will place additional costs on owners and developers in a time of increased costs across the board, and we consider that this will likely have the opposite effect as council intends through the loss of smaller landowners and the variety in buildings and amenities across Christchurch. Turning now to the increase to the business rating differential, we were disappointed to see the council has proposed an increase in the differential from 1.697 to 2.22. Rating differentials do not explicitly account for or demonstrate the services consumed by businesses or the direct benefit to businesses of the increased rates burden. Average commercial values have increased by 24% when compared to the 47% for residential. This is seen by council as justifying the increase in the business differential. In our view, this is not rational, and the comparative capital gain and the revaluation should also be considered by council in setting the rating differential. From this perspective, there's no justification for the increase. Furthermore, an increase to the business rating differential is only one of the many costs the commercial sector is facing. This cumulative impact will not promote Christchurch as a place to invest and develop. Based on this, we recommend that the business differential is not increased and instead an independent report be commissioned by council to analyse the proposed rating differential and its economic impact. It's vital that council adopts a model that is fair and equitable across all ratepayers. Finally, regarding the annual general rate, Property Council supports option A. This, in our view, will ensure a better spread of rates across Christchurch residents and businesses. In conclusion, while we support aspects of this year's annual plan, there are some changes that council should make to ensure that its decisions do not result in unintended consequences of increasing the cost of development and therefore driving away future investment within the city. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and very welcome of any questions on this.
Thank you. Very clear of what you've said. Thank you very much. Anyone got any? Yeah, Tyler.
Kia ora, mate.
Hi.
Outside of obviously extending that rates charge, what would incentivise developers to build on vacant sites?
Look, I mean, a lot of it's, in our view, with the vacant differential, the problem with that is it sort of it pushed development at a time when it wasn't necessarily commercially viable, so it sort of in some ways incentivised bad development. The biggest driver for it is the market, and the market at the moment is I mean, in Christchurch it's starting to turn around given the vacancy rates. We are actually seeing some development. A couple of other things on that front, certainty, including around transport. You probably would have heard from a few developers locally around some of these sort of central city transport changes. And just having certainty for investment to enable them to actually make decisions about where to actually do, where to actually carry out the developments. And the other side of that as well is the one of the other points we commented on in our submission related to the development contribution policy and the sort of expiry of the 10-year period. So I think there's scope for a conversation to be had between the development sector and council, and Property Council is very happy to facilitate that just around what would be the ideal model for that. And I accept keeping it open indefinitely is not going to incentivise development either, but the recognition that well, I guess recognition of two things. One, COVID had a huge impact on the entire country, including development in the city, and also the impact of that in terms of cost and viability and everything else. So that would be a useful tool to extend it as well. Plus the other thing as well with the with development in the central city, it was always intended that that would be catalysed by the anchor project. So the the single biggest thing that could be done to catalyse development in the city is getting those things concluded as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for coming in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next we have Alistair, please. Welcome, mate.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation. I know I'm not going to get through my complete PowerPoint presentation in the time allocated. Printed copies of my PowerPoint presentation are available for councillors. I received additional information from the council under the Official Information Act, and this arrived after submissions closed. I wish to highlight my concerns as to why the City Council water charging is unfair. Well known, 19.6 of ratepayers share a water meter and cannot be charged. This has upset some very local residents. The council is claiming it knows what some of those users are, but you cannot tell from a shared meter whether one person's using 1,000 litres average and another one 200. No reads, 13.78% of the water meters cannot be found. That means throughout Christchurch, about 20-odd thousand metres cannot be found. They cannot be read. These residents cannot be considered for an excess water account until the water meter is found. Then the actual usage over 3 months will be near impossible to calculate. This means over 45,000 ratepayers cannot be charged excess water charges. 45,000. If you add some of the faulty meters which are around, and I've seen them, which are reading 0, it's probably getting up round about 50,000 residents who cannot be charged for excess water. The Christchurch City Council is the only council in New Zealand to charge for water based on capital value and excess water charges. Is the council actually making a surplus on excess water charges, considering all the costs involved? I understand you have spent $6 million on the software, when I know very well that other companies have developed software for about $1 million. Most residents do not have an understanding as to how the council charged for the 700 litre allowance via their rate demand. The council has promoted heavily on excess water charges without explaining how residents pay for their 700 litre water allowance. I asked for some information from the City Council. I believe some of the information provided is incorrect. And to give you an example, they said that the cost of total of water metering is $1. I know the water meters readers get paid about $1. I know that most water meter readers, for example in our subdivision, 220 water meters, takes around about 2 days, or just under 2 days. The target set by the City Council, I believe, is 200 metres to be read every day. I'm asking the Council to please reconsider how they charge for excess water. The Council to abandon water charges until a fair option for water charging can be implemented, or the Council to spread the excess water charges over 12 months and not 3 months as it is doing currently. Or the Council reverts back to a daily water allowance based on the capital value of a property with a minimum allowance, as in 2021. This is an adjustment of the current charging, but a lot fairer. My preferred option is to have a fixed charge and a charge for every litre used, same as the Selwyn Council. However, I believe that cannot happen until the long-term plan. I see I've got 58 seconds left. I just want to say Orion delivers electricity via cables, and they will do the same thing. But they only charge for what you use. But the City Council charge a fee based on the capital value of our house, allow us 700 litres per day, reset every 3 months, and charge us for excess water charges. And I repeat, the only council in New Zealand to charge for water. The City Council, I want them to abandon the excess water charging now and of the alternative. I'll leave it at that because my time is almost up, I see. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. And Kelly will have one quick question.
Yes, I will. Thank you. Alistair, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Notwithstanding many inaccuracies in your presentation, do you understand why the Christchurch City Council is trying to reduce water consumption over the 3 months or 4 months of summer?
Yes, I do. And basically it's if you look at the original plan, it was to sort out water leaks. Now, the biggest leak, I think, is actually from the city council itself.
You think?
It's not from the residents. You know, I know one resident, for example, in our subdivision, if she had been faced with a water bill, but the council kept coming up saying there was a data problem every quarter. Then they finally decided that there wasn't a data problem. She had a massive water leak. And if she had been charged, and this is 12 months later, $4,500 for water. Absolutely ridiculous management from the city council.
Okay.
But I do understand.
Yeah, no, totally understand. Thank you very much for coming in.
Okay, thank
Good on
you.
mate. So next we have John, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
John Batchelor, Kennedy's Bush. Sorry, a bit of repeat stuff actually, because he stole my thunder. But okay, water charges. I've got a couple of alternatives which I'd just like you to consider, please, for covering the cost of water reticulation. The first suggestion I had, similar to the previous gentleman, is full user pays. Remove water charges from the general rates and charge for all water used. I'm aware of the limitations in summer, but however, paying for every bit of water you use introduces quite a considerable discipline. If any of you around here grew up on tank water as I did, if you've been on tank water, especially as a kid growing up with parents giving you the finger, you understand water usage, and it actually is a really good discipline you carry through the rest of your life. I'm picking that you may be not so keen on that idea. Second suggestion I have is also similar, and that's based on land area. Given that our rates are comprised of value, land value, and improvement value, and the land value relates a bit in the residential terms to to area. And this is particularly relevant to the Port Hills, where the fire risk is much, much greater than on the flat, and we suffered being evacuated and all that a few years ago, so I know what it's like. But Port Hills properties doing a bit of watering in the dry months for fire mitigation is virtually, if you live up there, it's essential, and it's in everybody's interest that maybe there's a bit of a green margin around properties to help prevent fire spreading. My third point is that if you do decide to continue with the current system of charging for sort of excess use, the charges do need to be over the whole year so that they even out. I'm well aware of limitations in the hot months, but if you live on the hills in particular, you've just got to do some watering in those hot months. Otherwise, everything will die, and then you've got a fire risk. You're just making a fire risk. And the point I make is that, sure, you might use more than whatever the allocation is decided to be over the summer months, the hot months. But however, the rest of the other 9 months of the year, maybe, or 8 months or whatever, you're probably below the allocation, and it really needs to be evened out so that you look at, okay, how much did the person use over the whole year, and it has to be evened out. And I make the point that if the infrastructure can't deliver the water in the peak period in the summer, then you need to look at the infrastructure, and also you need to have a hard look at how much development you're allowing to continue to be consented. And just one other point I want to make, and this is a housekeeping thing. This invoice, tax invoice statement, it's a government document. It's actually not really legitimate because it doesn't show how it's calculated. If it was a power bill, it would have meter start, meter finish, the amount, whatever, over what you're allowed, and the charge. It doesn't show any meter readings, and this one in particular is exactly a thousands of litre figure, 000, and if it was done on meter readings, it just would not be rounded off with 3 zeros. So I'll just be honest, I'm not paying this at the moment until the council shows me how this was calculated, because it's a bill for a usage of something. If it was a power bill, I'd see the usage. And this is an open item at the moment downstairs. But this issue of not showing how this is calculated is actually, you need to talk to your staff about making sure that an invoice is sent out that is legitimate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Kia ora, just a quick one.
Yep.
I won't ask you how much litre you use, but the Kennedy's Bush residents, on average, how much do you think they use?
Well, look,
per
just
day?
very quickly, I'm aware of the time, very quickly, we've only been on that property just for a short time, and last season, about a year ago roughly, I did a huge amount of planting trying to increase the border of native bush around the bottom of the place, just trying to create habitat for the birds and all that. I'm retired, you see, so this is great stuff to do when you're retired. Now, I admit I probably did use quite a bit of water, keeping all those young plants alive, and so that's fine. And I actually don't mind. I'm quite happy to pay this invoice, but I need to see how it was calculated. And so that's the point on the invoice. But Port Hills properties need to be able to keep their shrubbery alive. Otherwise, you end up with a whole lot of dead shrubbery, and then you've got the fire risk is even worse than it might be, if you know what I mean. The fires on the Port Hills there back however many years ago it was, you could see how the fire, like it tried to get into Kennedy's bush, into the native bush, and it sort of got sick of trying to burn native bush, and it whooped round the side and up the ridges and all on the dry stuff, the gorse and the grass and all that sort of carry on. Native bush has got a very real benefit, and if you live high on the hill, you're very happy to have properties with native bush below you because it actually will stop it. And I mean, I've even gone to the point of, I know they're a bit of a weed, but planting agapanthus right round the very bottom boundary, because agapanthus will just kill a fire once it's established in a decent thickness. And that's what it's all about. All right, thank you very much.
Very interesting, thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, now we've got Keith. Are you going to do two?
Yes, greedy.
Yeah, just one. You just roll one straight after the other, then, will you, please? Welcome.
Kia ora, and thank you for the opportunity. You've probably all had a chance to look at the briefing paper that we have prepared, but I feel that one picture is 1,000 words, so we're going for time saving. That is the state of Akaroa's courts area and play area, but that's a 2019 photograph, and nothing has happened since. So we're here today to try to say, please bring money that's been allocated forward so we can get this badge of shame eradicated and have a new and vibrant area for our community to play on. We have been through long legal hoops, etc. We are now an incorporated society and are ready to lease the property. So those are my words to you today. We probably sound like, going by all the other Akaroa people, a nagging spouse. You haven't done this, you haven't done that. And the general feeling in Akaroa is we are neglected. So I've got a little treat for you. I've got, and someone said to me, oh, I don't know about you going in there, Keith. You'll look like a rich retiree from Akaroa with nothing to do. But I can assure you, I come from a galaxy far, far away. And here's the poem. Who cries out for the land? Who cries out for the sea? Who hears the voice of one from a far-off galaxy? Who cries out for the land? Who cries out for the sea when only numbers count in a democracy? Now I get insulting. At the centre rises a great Colosseum with approach roads of gold, millions to spend for all to behold. Senators argue, but what of we? Some humble courts, a hard surface or two. Who cries out for the people at the extremity? Thank you. That's the BPSR submission. And are there questions then, or do you want to wait?
We'll do what you carry on. You're on a roll. You get right into it.
Yeah, I'm getting more poetry though. Now, the Akaroa District Promotions, who are sort of semi-business, semi-community organisation, have submitted in support. And their main arguments are it will be good for the physical and mental health of the community. Smaller interest groups will be able to use that part of the pavilion in your top left there. Our youth will be able to use it because we've got basketball hoops and so on. That will be good for our, now I don't know what the word is now, itinerant people who work in our restaurants and so on. They'll develop their own social groups and tend to stay longer in the village, which will be most helpful. As far as tourism goes, Akaroa is always referred to as the jewel in the crown, but I'm afraid that this little part of it is rather dusty and will need a good shake-up, especially for Coronation Week ahead. It's a very wide attraction. Day trippers from Christchurch will use these facilities, tourists and so on alike, and having them in crisp order will just add to the variety of things that are available, not only for the local community, but for tourists as well. So my urge is that you bring things forward. Thank you for being able to speak today.
Thank you. Yes, Aaron, please.
Couple of questions. The first one is, what is the resurface budget of this, and what year is it in the long-term plan?
It's
170,000, 10,000 next year, and 160,000 in 2025. But we've been trying to get this done for 5 years.
Right. So they do the first few square metres next year and then carry on.
Well, we haven't got to that. It's probably in the notes there, but we've had tulip prices done to do the job, and each time it goes up. And what we're trying to do is get a decent lease on it. The lease we're offered was for one court, which is really of no use for us to go to the trouble to do it, because we can't manage all the different people that want to use it on one court.
Right. So, yeah, okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see whether your local councillor moves a change of date on that one as we go.
I've asked the question, and I understand the money will be made available as soon as the community's ready to go, and the community's ready to go. So I hope my fellow councillors would support me on that.
Yeah.
I must say we've already canvassed other organisations to get extra funds now that we're incorporated, but we need to have the tennis courts handed to the community in a reasonable... I've lived there 42 years and nothing's been spent on it.
On that one, right. Okay, that's pretty clear.
Tim's got a question. I'll just ask a quick one. This is one court. How many courts are there total?
There used to be 5, but at the moment there's three courts that are that we're looking at trying to resurrect.
So that the other two are
They're being used as a car park for the Grand, which you can see
right
at the bottom.
Oh, yep.
Well, there are another 2 courts used exclusively by the Croquet Club as well, so there's a total of 5 that we're talking about.
Yes, I'm going to bring
They're greens.
going to bring Carol about that. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, Tim. Far away.
So the council owns all of it at the moment, is that correct?
Yes.
So what was do you know the logic behind just leasing one court?
No.
Is that it?
Not at all.
It's, okay. So you're saying there's more than just tennis courts, isn't there? So I don't know that. I've been there, but
they're used by more than just tennis players.
Okay,
put it
yep.
that way. The netball use it. They've got their facilities. So they've got a locker room in that hut. There's a basketball hoop that the youths use, and then people use them. There's a hitting wall for practicing tennis on.
So at the moment, you've now got an incorporated society,
Yes.
and is a negotiation for the whole area rather than the one court. Is that correct, or is that?
That's what we're hoping to achieve. We haven't had a lease to that extent yet. We had one lease that was presented to us. Would it be 2 years ago now?
For one court.
For one court.
I'm sure your councillor would be onto it. Yeah.
And as luck would have it, the councillor for the area would like to say something.
Well, actually, I mean, good to see you both. And I think that we will be able to get some go forward on that. But my question was actually going to be, I understand there is willingness among the groups involved to fundraise where appropriate as well, right? So you're not just sitting here going, please give us all the money we need. Like there's actually like a willingness to sort of to meet halfway. You just need to be given that ability to get some momentum, right?
Yeah, and we want the surety before we go to the community raising funds.
Yep, no, completely understand. Thank you.
It's to go forward, yeah.
So, but like there is that community push there to be able to say, we can do this. Please help us, council.
Well, we had over 400 submissions to what do you call them? Signatures to our sort of community petition, asking them what they thought. And there's been huge support. But over the last few years, people have got demoralised and given up, and we've sort of been from one person to another. So we're sort of here today to please.
Okay. No, fair enough. Okay, Aaron, another one?
Just quickly, just so I understand, that 170, is that us giving it to you and then you deliver the project, but you have a lease over all 5 courts, and that does all 5 courts?
I think we would prefer that. What we would like is to have community involvement in these facilities in Akaroa, so that we can manage it and fundraise and utilise it, rather than it being sort of having to ring somebody in the council and they go, where are the tennis courts? And we want to book it for next Friday. We want to form a sort of a community hub that runs these things.
The essential point, though, too, is we're wanting at least one of the courts to be multi-purpose. Netball, croquet, tennis, whatever. So don't please take away the impression that we're just here for a tennis court club. Equally important are the goal shoots and the other things.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. Very, very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Is Leanne here? Yes. Oh, yes. Leanne, good to see you.
Good morning, everyone. Kia ora, I'm Leanne Watson, the Chief Executive of the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce. I think I know most of you, although it feels like it's been a wee while since I've been here. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to our submission on the draft annual plan for 2023-2024. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce, which, as hopefully most of you know, represents 2,700 businesses across the Canterbury region and over 70,000 employees across Canterbury. The Chamber's submitting today for a draft annual plan which shapes and enables a business environment conducive to growth that takes into account the current business environment and the role that business plays across our community. The ability for our local businesses to grow has been impacted recently by a raft of market conditions, many of which I know you'll be aware of, but I do want to reinforce them today. Record inflation that sits at a 30-year high, a barrage of legislation adding additional compliance and cost, continual supply chain disruption, and of course a labour market that is increasingly unable to meet demand. To put a value on it, increased costs facing businesses, and in particular small businesses, estimate that overheads alone, such as rent and electricity, are costing them an additional $1,500 per month in the last year. This plan, as it is currently drafted, will mean Canterbury businesses are hit with a trifecta of residential rates increases, business rate increases at the same time that interest rate rises continues to go up. I want to take this as an opportunity to give you a few examples of failure in this plan to recognise the challenges facing business and their role in the prosperity of Christchurch and the provision of livelihoods for our residents, and the Council's default position as an enforcer rather than an enabler. Let's take a look at the proposed increase in the differential rate for business. The draft annual plan also seeks to increase the business differential rate, which with the key rationale being to keep the proportion of rates paid by businesses the same. The increase in rates paid by businesses when compared with residents not only fails to recognise the cost pressures facing businesses, but also, unfortunately, makes the Council's position clear, that if businesses don't pay more, then residents will need to. With the report saying that it makes rate increases for residential ratepayers more affordable, without saying it makes rate rises for businesses less affordable. Next up, the city vacant differential is also an example of the Council defaulting to the role of an enforcer rather than an enabler of business. The differential is not a rate and should not be referred to one. It is a fine. Our view is that a much better approach would be for the Council to support developers' involvement in decision-making and incentivise land development, rather than taking the broad stroke enforcement approach. On the flip side, I do want to acknowledge some positive examples of the Council acting as an enabler. It is good to see in the draft annual plan committing to supporting and attracting major events and further initiatives to support industry cluster development. This proactive approach taken by the Council to enhance industry cluster development is an example of what can be achieved when the Council does act as an enabler. So while it is noted that the Council faces similar inflationary pressures as every other business, we are not supportive of the 5.83 increase in rates for businesses. We propose that the Council fully considers all other levers they have available, like powering up asset recycling programs, reviewing all expenditure and their priorities before increasing rates at this level. So in summary, I'd like to see a much clearer understanding from the Council that businesses are a fundamental part of our community, not a separate community. We'd also like to see a greater recognition in the plan of the significant and ongoing challenges that businesses are facing in this current economic climate, and a commitment from the Council to act as a business enabler rather than an enforcer, and to create a much more supportive and understanding environment that it facilitates rather than hinders business. Yes, it is a challenging time for residents, but it is also an incredibly challenging time for businesses who are also our residents. If our businesses thrive, then so too do our communities. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions in my 38 seconds left.
Yeah, far away. Tyler, then Tyrone.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Tyler.
I asked James this just before, and talking about development incentives and support for businesses. How can council incentivise and support businesses while at the same time maintaining public trust with our ratepayers?
So supporting businesses while maintaining trust?
Well, there is a perceived notion that developers have a stronghold on the development of things in our city, for example, streets.
Yes. I think I might know the example you're referring to.
How can we maintain a really good relationship with developers? We'll start with that question.
Yeah.
Then we can move into other stuff.
I mean, I think that this is the fundamental premise of my submission today, is that if the council can take a really strong role in supporting and understanding the role of businesses in our community who ultimately provide the livelihoods for our residents. And then we don't have this tension between, the average person living in Christchurch seeing business as the big, bad, ugly business. And so this is about businesses providing the right environment to create really good community outcomes. And that starts with people around this table understanding and supporting the role of business. Without businesses in the central city, for example, we would not have a central city. There is absolutely no question of that. Our businesses in the central city have invested millions of dollars. They have led the redevelopment of the central city. And yet the way in which we pay them back is to actually remove them from really important conversations about future changes to central city roads, speed limits, one-way, two-way, etc.
I guess that's the point right there. Is those conversations? How would you like that to look? What's the vision between council and those developers?
Yeah. So look, the first thing, and I've had a conversation with a few people in the room around this. So the first thing we need to do is to get them all on the same in the same discussion. Everyone wants the best outcome for Christchurch and Christchurch as a whole and Central City as a whole. So if we can get them around the table to talk about some of the proposed changes, if there are going to be some proposed changes, to make sure we bring those developers with us. So we explain what the outcomes are that the City Council are looking for and why they're proposing to make some of those changes, as opposed to making decisions and then telling them after. That's not consultation. So we need to get on the same page right at the start and bring them with us on that journey, as opposed to seeing the consultation as an add-on at the end after a decision has largely been made.
Gotcha. Yep. And sorry, Phil, eating up all the time. This is really important to me. I really enjoy this. The next question is around at what level would you like those conversations to happen? I mean, there's those small projects such as Gloucester Street, Litchfield Street, or is it at the master plan, annual plan kind of seat?
So what's been suggested is there is obviously we have a plan right now, and the plan's been in existence for a long time. And if there are changes proposed to that plan, then right at the outset, before any changes are openly discussed, is to bring those developers into the room to talk about this is what we're thinking about and why. How will this potentially impact you, good or bad, before any decisions are made? So I think right at the outset, involve them. They just want to be involved in those discussions. We're not going to always agree on everything, but if you involve them in the discussions at the outset, it's far better than involving them once a decision has been made.
That's
and you've
great.
seen the backlash of that, right?
Yep, appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You and Tyrone, please.
Kia ora, Leanne. Thanks for your submission. I'm not. Have you been? I'm just not sure if you've been over to Littleton recently.
Yes, I have.
But if you have, you'd probably note that not a single commercial privately owned site in Littleton where there's a demolished building has been replaced since the earthquake. So what advice would you have for council in order to help move that redevelopment of the city, of the town centre along?
So I guess I'd probably throw the question back to you first off before I can respond. So what engagement have you had with those landowners over in Littleton to understand what the barriers are to their development?
That's a great question, and I guess probably not as much as I personally should have, but there is, I mean, I've only been the councillor for 6 months, and they've owned the land for 12 years post earthquake, so that's probably would be my response to that. Yeah. So are the current regulations too strict? Is there something that council's doing wrong there?
Look, I think, when we submitted on this issue a while back, what we talked about was getting alongside the land owners to actually understand what the barriers and impediments are to their development. Now, we all want vacant land to be developed. There's no doubt about that, because it creates an ongoing scar for us of earthquakes. And so there are there has been a huge challenge over the last few years with COVID, with supply chain disruptions, which makes it really difficult for developers to actually develop land. Hopefully we're getting through some of that. So I think the first thing is to actually understand what are the barriers, and then trying to understand what their timeframes are, rather than just going, nothing's happening, so therefore we'll just give them a fine. That's not going to create an incentive for them to develop their land, in my opinion. So if the outcome that you're looking for is to actually get land developed and to get buildings back on those sites, I think the best thing that you can do is have discussions to find out what the barriers are and find out whether or not there is a role for council to actually try and remove some of those barriers, or at least understand the time frame that they're looking at for redevelopment.
That's helpful advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, your little question there.
Just
That's the last one.
Yep.
You wake up.
Just short one. So with that, in the areas outside the central city, we had in the central city we had a large number of incentives. So we had a whole pile of public investment into the public realm, and we had development contribution rebates, sort of tens of millions of dollars for developers and things. Do you think we should be trying those kind of incentives in those other areas before the stick, if you like?
Absolutely. I mean, if those incentives worked, and you know, in some cases I think they did, then why would you not apply that same methodology to those areas? But I think the first thing that you need to do is engage with those communities and those landowners to find out what the barriers are.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I've let everything run on a bit far too long here, so thank you for coming in, Leanne.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Is Heidi here, please? Oh, good to see you. You're hiding behind the chair there.
Sorry.
She's all yours, babe.
Okay.
The new Tenby Action Group.
Yep, NAG.
NAG. Yeah, I was too polite to say that.
So I've come here today to reiterate that we need something done about the flooding in Tenby Place and Newport Street. There's got to be a solution to solve that problem. There's only maybe half a metre of water that's the problem, really. It just can't go anywhere. And maybe a pump put in place and left there, something that turns on automatically when the water reaches a certain level, because that worked in the past and I'm sure it would work again. I would like the council to consider that and take it into next year's draft, please.
Okay. Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Right, here we are. And I'll do Yanni first because I cut him short last time.
Yeah, thank you, and apologies, I missed your deputation to the council, but can you just tell me, like, how many times a year are you getting, like, the flooding that we see in the photos?
Whenever there is more than 24 hours of rain.
Right.
It just can't seem to go anywhere. Mind you, since the council has cleaned out the, what's it called, gully traps, you know, where the water goes down, there seems to be a bit of a better flow out there. Right. But we haven't had a big rain event, so we can't really tell whether it's working or not.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Aaron?
Yeah, just on this and other ones, because we've had ones like up in Hornby and things over the years when these come up during the annual plan. It'd be quite good to get like as part of our briefings, a 15-minute update on where they've got to, the history of them and the way going forward. And this would be a sitter for that, because this just screams out a sump and a pump for the amount of water they have, that I just can't see why that wouldn't be the solution. So it'd be good to be told that if it can't be.
I'll get them to give us
clear
an
it with
update on where we're at it, because I know they've been working on it and some levels been done.
Yes, so it'd be good if someone's working on it, just that we get an update.
So that we know, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Kelly?
Yeah, thanks for coming along again, Heidi. So just in terms of, council's intervened before, from what I understand. They put up signs, they bought pumps in, and they've pumped and cleared the water out, even when it's like knee deep. They've done it quite quickly.
Yeah, it takes a couple of hours, I think, for it to go down. I'm not sure exactly where they're pumping it to, but it seems to work.
Mm. So you're looking for, it sounds like a fairly simple solution.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know how much these pumps cost, but one to put in there where it's always flooding all the time when it's raining might be a good idea, I think.
Yeah. So we know there was an article about Porritt Park and the redevelopment of that area into wetland, and I think the council staff have been looking at doing them in conjunction. Are you looking for something temporary in the meantime to clear that water out of the streets?
Yes, certainly. We don't want to have a repeat of that every couple of months during the winter.
Yeah.
It's just not really good enough.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very, very much for coming in. Good to see you again.
Right, thank you.
Okay, and with that, I will adjourn the meeting till 5 o'clock on Thursday. That is 5 o'clock. You have got that, haven't you?
Hey, it's my birthday. I've brought a cake in, so please help yourself. Whatever's not taken now, I'm taking upstairs, so enjoy.
Happy birthday.
Have a cup of tea.
Thank you for coming in, everyone.